Good evening, YouTube. Hardball Crazy come back with video. Today I'm going to do a special Election Day Hall of Fame type video. Since it's Election Day today, I hope everybody went out and voted. Do your civil duty and do so. I did myself this morning, was in and out like in 5 minutes or so. Quick and easy peasy. And yesterday I announced the 8 candidates, the 8 guys on the ballot for the Veterans Committee Hall of Fame. I will not get into my analysis, who should get in, who should not, rants and raves and anything else that. But I'm going to have a little bit of a, normally don't like doing what ifs too much, but I have a little fun exercise, fun little discussion. Maybe introduce you to a site or that you may not know of. What if the Hall of Fame was purely based on stats only, and there was no politics whatsoever, there was no favoritism, there was no cronyism of any sort, there wasn't anything that character clause of any sort? What if there was just purely on what they did in the field for the whole career? Well, there is a kind of a website that kind of does that for us. It's called Hall of Stats, and that is basically what it is, the Hall of Stats. Because what they did is they used WAR, I think Baseball Reference version of WAR, I believe. They used WAR as its base, and they use as a formula, and use the that as the base for Hall of Fame. And in their discussion and their belief, they said in the front page that there's 240 players in the Baseball Hall of Fame currently right now as players. They take, with their formula based on WAR, the 240 best players with their formula and put them into the Hall of Stats. And they only use eligible players, so they can compare apples to apples. So since the Hall of Fame is not eligible to have Pete Rose or Shoeless Joe Jackson or any of the other Black Sox, even though I think Eddie Seacott would be eligible if you look at the player rankings within each position, they will be in the Hall of Stats. But they're not; those not eligible. One is not eligible in the other. They're comparing apples to apples, and they compile a list of the 240 best players according to the Hall of Stats, would be their version of the Hall of Fame. Of course, this is not completely foolproof. It has its flaws. For example, it doesn't. Since the Negro League players don't have so many stats, they pretty much are excluded from this list, even like the greats of like Josh Gibson and Cool Papa Bell and Satchel Paige and so forth. So they're not included in the original 240, but they kind of did some formula. Somebody came up with a formula like Major League equivalent. If this one player was dropped into the major leagues, what was his major league equivalent stats would be, and kind of accumulate that. And not all the players at once, but each individual Negro Leaguer dropped into the major leagues, AL, NL, and what their stats would be. So they have a Negro League section. Of course, it doesn't do anything about impact of the game or contributions to the game, postseason, heroics, or anything like that. This is purely stats. Of course, it's WAR based, so it's more geared towards the shortstop, second baseman, center fielders versus like the corner outfielders or corner infield positions. And they kind of bumped up the catcher position with an extra percentage because they don't play as many games per se, say your typical first baseman or third baseman, because they're grinding of the season. They also don't. It's not really a formula for relief pitchers because they pitch so few innings. I think Mariano Rivera and maybe Hoyt Wilhelm's only included, which I'm okay with. I think that's a good thing anyways. But if you look at the Hall of Stats, I did a quick math. There is a 60-plus player difference in between what discrepancy, I guess. There's 60 players in the Baseball Hall of Fame who are 60 plus, say 65-ish or so, 60, 65, say 60 players in the Baseball Hall of Fame who would not make it to the Hall of Stats, and therefore there will be vice versa. There's 60 plus Hall of Stats players who are not currently in the Hall of Fame. So I kind of go on and just use this as a kind of fun exercise. Some of the players you probably already know would be in the Hall of uh, Stats who's not in the Hall of Fame. Maybe somebody like a Dick Allen, a Jeff Kent, a Scott Rowland, a Kenny Lofton. I just grabbed a few modern cards. There's of all eras here. Just some guys you probably know, no big deal. Bobby Abreu, or some of the guys you probably had no surprise with. There's David Cone. He was on the Hall of Stats, but not Hall of Fame. And some point, there's someone on the Hall of Stats you will say, there's no way in heck he's a Hall of Famer. But he's because somebody like John Olerud, he's a Hall of very good, but I don't think he will ever get in the Hall of Fame. He should never get in the Hall of Fame. But you know what? I use like the Hall of Stats sort of like a supplement to the Hall of Fame, or if I was missing a player that I realized didn't realize how good they were, either before my time or my childhood and viewing time. I didn't realize how good they were, but actually they were better than I am. So I ended up picking a couple cards up just to have them. Those would be somebody like, but they're certainly not Hall of Famers whatsoever, I don't think. Somebody like a Kevin Napier. Didn't realize he's would be included in the Hall of Stats, but not obviously he's not a Hall of Famer. But to kind of say, you know what, I should pick up a couple of Kevin Napier cards in my collection. Just kind of have. And I picked up a Wilbur Wood rookie card. So that's what the Hall of Stats is. Something you might want to look at is hallofstats.com. If you want to if you're a Hall of Fame collector and you're kind of, bummed out or maxed out financially, you just got to get the, super expensive guys. You want to add to your Hall of Fame collection, but you want to kind of expand on. Maybe you can hit the Hall of Stats and kind of add those players in and see if you can add to that collection. And then they come the Hall of Famers. Some of them may come Hall of Famers. You already have cards of them. If you're an autograph collector, you want to add a few more autographs, and you don't want to speculate on the really young guys and say this, but speculate on some of the older guys, or just add some Hall of Very Goods or Hall of Stats guys into your collection. Say, you know what? I'll add an extra, because the Hall of Fame is basically what the last top 2% of the players. Add extra, percentage point, half a percentage point of players onto your collection and say, you know what, these are very good players also. Add these to my PC. But, I thought it'd be a cool little discussion of Hall of Fame, stat-wise and merits and so forth. And also want to include that the Hall of Fame I should say Hall of Fame guideline. I guess it's like just like the OPS plus and ERA plus 100 is like the minimum. The bottom section is fluid, so once you're in the Hall of Merit, you can get bounced out. So say if somebody an active player surpasses a player who's in the last listed in the Hall of Fame, Hall of Merit, well, somebody's going to get dropped out. If the Hall of Fame inducts somebody in the Hall of Fame and it's not already inducted in the Hall of Merit, they will add another player to the Hall of Merit. They all explain it on the website and everything, but it's kind of a cool little website that I kind of go by. So you know what, I look at the player and see what they instead of just look at the WAR or OPS plus, ERA plus, and all that type of stuff. So what does this website say compared to what this active player is, or what this former All-Star is compared to others in the position, or what's his Hall of Merit number compared to others? Who's he with? Stuff like that. Just an extra little gauge, a little fun exercise, I guess. Anyways, I rambled on too long enough, and hope you all have a good night, and thank you for watching.